Good MoonDay morning, everyone. Welcome to the MoonDay morning Priestess chat. I need to double check my settings here really quick. Ooh, yeah. Okay, sorry about that. I was just changing some of my settings here. And let me get this. Let me get my timer up here too. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. There we go. It's right under the little camera. All right. Well, let's begin. Okay, so welcome everybody officially now to MoonDay Mondays. This is my new live stream over here on Water Priestess Arts. I have been doing this live stream now just for a month, and we had Dakota Chanel give us a great first guest 2 weeks ago, and then I've been on by myself a little bit. Hello Aqua Virtuous, welcome. And today we have Brandy Williams, who's the author of multiple books, and I'm going to ask her all about this stuff so that you guys can hear and learn all about her and her work. And this live stream focuses very much on the feminine arts and priestess arts. So it doesn't necessarily focus on women, though that's a good portion of it, but the sacred feminine within water and watery practices and in conjunction with and that support and such. And there's also a little bit of an emphasis on the physical body here as well. And then of course you guys know I have my main account where I have under Anne Avalon, where I focus a little bit more on Avalon Celtic practices and folk magic. There we go. It's Monday morning. Hello Nurse. Hello. And Malin. Welcome. All right, so I have just been shuffling some cards. So what I'm going to do real quick is just pull one for our day, because I kind of would like one for myself. And then after we do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring Brandy on, and we're going to learn all about her priestess practices and the work that she does. And yeah, I'm very excited. And I'm very thankful as well for having this platform, both platforms actually, and, the ability to be able, one of my cats is trying to break in, the ability to be able to not only share my passions and my work, but other people's as well. And I think that that's something that's just really important. And it's something that I never really saw myself doing until about 6 months ago, when I was just like, hey, you can't cover everything about water by yourself. So what if you bring on guests and have them talk about it? And that's really what started, the Water Wednesdays interview series over on the other account. And then I started thinking, but that account focuses on folk magic and witchcraft. So what about the other stuff? So that's why this account was started to get beefed up, and it is going to take a heavy focus on priestess arts, what that is for a variety of different people. Moonwater May, hello, and Catfish, hello. Welcome everyone. Okay, so I've shuffled these cards here for a little bit. Ooh, interesting. All right, so card number 32, Internal Explorer. So this is interesting, but that makes a lot of sense. We've been focusing a lot on exploring the physical body, but we've been doing that specifically in my 30-day challenge, specifically to support the internal self. So by exploring our physical body, it also helps us to explore the internal. So that's was kind of interesting, and it's got a real watery look to it. I'm kind of interested to hear all about Brandy and find out if this relates to anything that she is working on. So without wasting any more time, because it's over 5 minutes, and I usually only want to talk by myself for the first 5, let's bring Brandy on. All right, so let me send the invite here. Just takes a moment. Oh, look at this. She's already sent it. And we should be getting it here in just a second. There it goes. All right. And
Hi.
hello. I'll have to adjust my camera real quick because it cut off my forehead. It always does that. There.
Are you able to see me?
Yes. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this with me and for being patient. I had to go off and come back on because I couldn't hear you, but it fixed it. So.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, the good news is I have the ability to record everything. So I've had it happen once or twice where it bugged out on me and just didn't save. But for the most part, it's pretty good. So we should be able to save this and cross-post it and everything. So, okay, let's start with an intro. So I basically have told them that your name is Brandy Williams and that you're an author and a priestess, but that just seems so vague. Can you deepen your intro and tell us a little bit about you, what you do, all of the books that you've read, where we can find you, and I'm going to ask you that again at the end, but I keep forgetting to ask where we can find you at the beginning so we can get your info out there. So we want to do that as well, and then I'm going to start asking you tons of questions like, how did this whole thing start? How did you become a priestess? All these different things. So, okay, let's recap. So give us a deeper intro on who you are and what you do now, and also your books, and we'll start there.
Okay, so Brandy Williams Author is how you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, and brandywilliamsauthor.com. So it's really easy to find me. I am a writer, and I have 5 books. 2 of them are out of print, and 3 of them are in print. So with Llewellyn, I have Practical Magic for Beginners, and my new book, Cord Magic, which I'm really excited about. I'm having so much fun with it. And I also have Ecstatic Ritual, Practical Sex Magic with Ingram, Imanian Press. And then I have just created my own press, Mnemosyne Press, to reprint my 2 books that are out of print. So For the Love of the Gods will come out in February 1st, and then The Woman Magician I will do next. I don't have a date for that. So I'm bringing my other books out as well. So I'm very excited about that. I've been meaning to do that for a long time. And Dr. Megan Rose asked me, where's For the Love of the Gods? It's out of print, and I'm recommending it to my students. I said, okay, I'll make an ebook. So that's my books. I want to talk a little bit. You had sent me a link to your very first Priestess video live stream, and you talked about what it means to be a priestess, and also how that's changed over the decade and how it's changed for you. And I want to talk a little bit about my experience because I'm kind of coming out as old. It's a thing that you have to come out about. When I was a young witch, we thought of older people, older witches, as having power, and we, pushed against that power. And it's been kind of interesting to make the shift into aging and to realize that aging in our culture takes away power for women in particular, but for all people. It's one of those sort of things that makes you a target. And so I wanted to talk about that because I kind of hide the fact that I'm old, and it's because it was corporate. When you're corporate, you're supposed to be young and energetic. And I would dye my hair, and I look younger. My family always looks younger than we are. So I passed as younger. That's why I say I'm coming out, because it's so interesting. So I grew my hair, gray. It's moon color. Oh, I'm wearing my moon. It's Moon Monday, so I'm wearing my moon scarf today for you. But I've seen so many changes in how we think about witchcraft and how we think about priestessing, and it's fascinating. One of the things that I set myself to do was to always keep up, to not go, oh, this is the way it should be because that's the way it was when I was young, but to keep my skills up, to keep my thoughts up, to keep connecting with people. I love the changes that are happening in the magical community now. When I first became a witch, it was you were a witch and a pagan and a priestess, and that was it. That was all one thing. And there were a
Right.
few of us, and there was no internet. And it was so much harder to meet people.
So I grew up magically in like the really early 2000s. Like really, really. But I'm guessing if this is pre-internet, we're talking about 80s, early 90s for you. Is that when you kind of like grew up into your magical self? Yeah, or
Great,
even more.
great, great, great. I converted to witchcraft when I was 16, and the books that were out then were Lady Sheba's Grimoire.
Oh
So
wow.
that far back, I was initiated in 1977 as a witch.
You have a magical power of really looking a lot younger than you are. Because I'm over here
I
like
do.
80s and 90s, and you're like,
I
girl,
know.
give me another decade or two. But you
I
do have
know.
just that, like, that your skin
Yeah.
is so amazing. Well, this is
Yeah.
something to aspire to
Yeah.
be, but this is amazing because a lot of young because I find myself in just ahead of the young priestess trend, where there's just so many young priestesses in their late 20s, early 30s. I'm pushing the 40s now, like I'm in that late 30s, 40s, and I feel a little bit like they've got like all the cool stuff and they're so young and beautiful and they're up on technology and they have such great ideas. They didn't have to fight the battles that I fought, but I also didn't have to fight the battles that you fought. And it's because of the work that you did and that trickled out into my generation, that's trickling out into the young generation, where we do have a lot of women either self-identifying as priestesses or joining different magical paths that have initiatory or priestess-like work and practice. So this is a real treat for me. There's a lot of questions I probably am going to ask, but I'll try and keep them to a minimum. But talk about being a priestess and your initial, like those days before the internet, because these are not stories I think that young priestesses have ever heard. I've heard them around the campfire or late night at Pantheacon, 1 a.m, 10th floor, but now we don't have, you're laughing, 10th floor.
I miss Pantheon so much. I would connect with you there, and we got a chance to have the last one before the pandemic, but I really miss it. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing to have.
It was.
Yeah.
I think that we'll see Mystic South rise as like the next kind of Pantheacon thing. I went there in 2019 and it was a lot of fun. Anyways, I want to hear from you. Zip it, Anwen. So yes, okay, so talk about being a priestess in the early days, your early days.
Very, very early days. And I want to say I am so thrilled that there are so many people who can be witches now, who can say, I'm a witch, I'm a priestess, because that's what we were working for. When I started being a witch, I couldn't tell almost anyone I was a witch. People would attack me on the street if they saw me reading a book about witchcraft. People, if I went to a party and my friend said, this is my friend a witch, they would back me in a corner and yell at me. So it was very much a very hostile and scary environment when I first started. And I joined Covenant of the Goddess, which is an umbrella group for witchcraft groups. And I became, over the fullness of time, I became the president. And I sort of was as president, as the first officer of Covenant of the Goddess, you have to agree to be the public face of witchcraft. And so a number of people, dozens and dozens of people, spent years working on making speeches and doing media and changing laws. And now we're in this place where being a witch is cool. I was like, it is so awesome. I'm so happy. It worked.
That we have our own aesthetic now. Like there's an actual like aesthetic that's like witchcraft, and then there's aesthetics within those aesthetics of witchcraft, because you could be like, you can look this way, Stevie Nicks, you can look this way, Morticia Adams, like, we've got this, like, at first I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But now I look at it very differently, kind of like what you were saying, is this was the ultimate goal anyways, was
Right.
to make it so that we could read a book on the street without getting attacked.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
spent my entire first decade as a magical person in the closet completely. The only person that knew were the people in my coven, and my partner, really. That was it. And I didn't start publicly really declaring myself as a witch until after that 10 years. Even though I had been practicing, I had been initiated. I didn't tell people in the real world. Like, I would tell other witches, but and like hang out with them, but I was still in that awkward period of having non-magical friends and magical friends. Now I just don't have time for anybody that's not magical, and I know that that sounds terrible, but at the same time, like, I like being around like-minded people, and there's so many of us now that the friend pool is a lot bigger than it was. But gosh, yeah, I don't think that a lot of people, kind of circling back to what you said about reading a book on the street and getting attacked, I don't think that most women, especially in the up and coming generation, even know that their teachers and their teachers' teachers had to go through stuff like that. So I think it's really important that we talk about this, because the history is so important, and getting to this place of all of these amazing priestesses and witches, or around the world, we have people like you, and specifically you, to really thank for being the person that read the book on the street and made
Yeah.
it public, and put that in front of people's eyes so that maybe someone else could see it and someone else could see it. It's almost like activism for witchcraft and the priestess path, specifically around those particular things. So like a magical justice for our community, in a way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think, do I have this right, that some of your magic that you do is also within social justice, or did I just make that up from
Yeah.
Facebook?
No, yeah. You were saying that
Okay.
you hang out with magical people, and I was thinking I have sort of groups. I hang out with magical people a lot, but I do social justice work, and I do gardening. I'm a master gardener, so
Oh,
I have contact with people who are not magical, but they are doing magical things, and I think both of those things feed into my magic. And I wanted to come back to this idea of being an older witch too, because you were saying there's this aesthetic, this Morticia Adams, or the charmed witches, and there's a thing about women that and I want to say, by the way, that anyone who says they're a woman is a woman. So women who have a menstrual cycle will end. Right? Or people who have menstrual cycles, those menstrual cycles end, and we move into menopause. And that's the place where women in our culture drop out of sight, where actresses can't get parts anymore, and women don't get attention. And so I think it's important to also begin to exemplify, the work isn't done, it's important to exemplify being an older witch. You can be old and still be a witch. You can be not beautiful and still be a witch. And there's a great power in that. And something we don't talk about that at all. We don't talk about the changes that happen to the body at menopause. This is like a forbidden subject. So one of my things is just talk about it and say there is a physical process that happens, and at the other end of it, you become a wise woman. There's this wisdom that comes with the moving out of the cycles and moving into the third stage of life. I don't like the word crone because it's got so many negative connotations, but
yeah.
I think it's important to show our gray hair and to talk about our experience. The woman that I follow, the witch that I follow, is Selena Fox. I just adore her because she is so
Yes.
much the old witch. She's out there with her gray hair. She's got her staff, and she's like, "We're going to chant to the moon," and she chants. I just love her. I love her Instagram. So I think
I
it's really
have
important
had
to talk about this.
I've had the biggest witch slash priestess crush on her from, I mean, I knew about her almost immediately as soon as I stepped on the path, and started like actually digging in. It was like, oh, Selena Fox, Selena Fox, Selena Fox. And I was in the military circles for a very like beginning portion of my magical path. And the first pagan circle I attended was actually on an Air Force base. Um,
Oh,
and right, I know. And Selena Fox has done so much for the pagan and magical community and the military. Um, uh-oh. Okay. Oh, can you see me? Okay, I got a little like thing. It went like this, so my I guess my internet paused. But can you guys? Am I back? Can you hear me? Yeah.
you're
Okay.
back.
Great.
I am.
So she was actually responsible for making the change on the military headstones.
She
So
was.
up until she got involved, you could have, I think, the Star of David, and you could have a cross, and like maybe something else, like a flag or something. And she did a ton of work in the late 90s around this, getting the pentagram as an approved symbol for the military headstones. And of course, she did Circle Magazine, all sorts of stuff. And I remember the first time I saw her walk through the halls of Pantheon, I was just like, it's like watching the Queen of England like just walk through the grocery store or something, and you're just like, oh my God. Like if
Yeah.
I when I am her age, if I have accomplished like half of what she's accomplished, I feel like I would be successful. She is just so amazing and so beautiful and fearless. Fearless.
Mhm.
I think that that's something else. And it was never like, I'm fearless. It was like, I'm fearless. And I always wished that I could have that joy over the top of that fearlessness. But mine comes in a little bit more like aggressive. But I do want to circle back to what you were talking about with the aging, because I find myself in this really strange place of the in between, and having come from being something that focused very much on the physical body with dance, and kind of having this like very beautiful, perfect body and aesthetic. Over the past few years, I've gone, I mean, I was a mother early. I had my son when I was 22, but I still very much felt that maiden energy. And I even still, I mean, my son is 16 now, so I'm, like a little bit like resistant. And yesterday we had our coven call, and my bestie was on there, and it was her birthday this past week, and she turned 39, and she was like, one more year till 40, and like just so excited. And I'm like, I would like to turn 25, please. So I'm in this like place of resistance where my best friend is very much like, bring it on. Like, I can't wait to be, older. I won't care as much. I get away with more. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but this conversation has been, um, kind of present in my life. So the fact that you're bringing it up is one of these like, oh man, Anwin, you're really going to have to sit with it this week, because my body is softer. My body is different. Even my hair is different. My nails are different. And it's so strange because it really felt like it started to creep in after 35. But at 34, I was still feeling like I was 25 years old, like just really, it feels like it hit me hard. This like, yes, yes. Now you're moving from like this maiden mother stage into the mother, and yeah, I don't like crone either, but we're just going to use it for now, like that crone stage. And I'm over here being like, but, ah, um, but I don't know if, I think that this, you bringing it up and talking about how important it is and really shining a light on the beauty and the power of the aging feminine really kind of is making me sit here with some of my own biases, because if I'm having that about myself, then I have some layers to unpack about about this and my own process of moving into that, because time doesn't reverse. So I've got to get right with myself. And part of this challenge I've been doing this month, Nourish Your Sacred Body, is really to bring me back into the physical body, because as I'm aging, I'm not liking what I see and I'm disassociating instead of grabbing it by the horns and really saying, like, no, this is me. And simultaneously, as I struggle through this, the story of Baba Yaga and Vasilisa has come up for me twice. So I got, as an author, you know this because people send you advanced copies of their work, their books. And so I got advanced copies of Madame Pamita's New Slavic Magic and Danielle Blackwood's, I know, Her Lantern in the Dark, which both of them I highly recommend. But both of them cover the story, like they basically, one tells magic and witchcraft through Baba Yaga's story. The other tells your Saturn return through Vasilisa, through Baba Yaga. And so really this idea of like learning, you know, as a maiden and into that motherhood or more knowledgeable place, then to actually looking at things from Baba Yaga's eyes. And when I first read the story, I was like, oh, Baba Yaga's so mean. And then when I read it from Baba Yaga's perspective, I was like, how dare that little girl just come and ask for the fire? So, so yes, I find myself here. So I'm actually really happy and excited that you brought this up. And I'd like to turn it back over to you and zip my mouth again, and let you talk a little bit more about this and really how you're finding beauty in yourself and power in yourself and wisdom in yourself, and maybe a couple of some of how you really accepted this transition and found strength through it. Oh, that would be fantastic.
And I've talked to other women at that moment when you're about to enter into menopause. When I entered into menopause, nobody was talking about what it was like physically. I went to my doctor and said I had a migraine, and she said, we need to talk. And she really helped me through it. One of the things she said was, if you resist this, we can give you hormones. We can try to stop this process, and it will elongate it, and then you'll have there's discomfort in it, and the discomfort will go longer. I've talked to women who took hormones, who stayed in menopause, stayed in that transitional state for 15 years, and I embraced it. It's because my doctor encouraged me to do this. I just leaned into it, and it was over in just a couple of years. And on the other end, I was a different person. So I wanted to say, you take your own medical advice. Whatever your doctor tells you is the important thing to follow. But for me, that was my path, and then. We are frightened of it because, again, our culture values youth and values beauty and values sexuality, values the way we can relate to men. And then on the other end of this, we're no longer as attractive to men because we're, the body has changed. We're not giving off those pheromones any longer. And what happened was I started connecting more with women. Suddenly menopausal women and I could talk to each other, and there's a whole other level where we can have conversations. But I was still like a little shy about talking about it until I started studying with the tantric teacher who said, oh, let me introduce you to Brandy. She's a Bhairav. We all have this to look forward to. And I said, you can look forward to this. You can exemplify the idea that there is wisdom and you can step into this state. So there's this other stage of life where you have access to feelings and thoughts and intuitions that are finally clear because you're able to be at that level. So I just wanted to say that, and I like the idea of wise woman. I think we should start like promulgating that rather than crone is like withered person who is now used up. And it plays into that whole image of, that you're no longer valuable. We are the most valuable at this point. I think about whales, right? Whales are matriarchal. They have pods. Orca, like killer whales in Washington, we see these pods. And the pod that has an older female whale is more likely to survive than one who doesn't, because they have the wisdom to show people, to show the whales where to go. And I think that's true for humans too. We need to draw on the wisdom of women as well as men. We have the wise old man, and old men, old men still get to be like in public, and they still get to, you know, have this public face, whereas we, you know, the women are supposed to be young. So I think the wise woman is a really important, like, sort of image to begin to step into, and to encourage each other, encourage the witches who are coming after us, and the women who are coming, priestesses who are coming after us, that this is to step into that power. But it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be, you know, like a little, like, because the body does change, and you have to get adjusted to that. And also, the culture is still not, you know, the culture is still behaving like this. So all of the things that we feel are really, really natural and normal. It's okay to feel them.
So there's almost as if there's a deeper acceptance of not only the self, but of other people, very specifically women. And as you're saying this, I'm actually thinking and looking back to all of the major, the most impactful women in my life, right? And I mean, I grew up, I have a strained relationship with my mother, and I'm estranged from my sisters. And I grew up in a very evangelical background, and it just wasn't a healthy environment. And there was a lot of fighting, a lot of betrayal. If we could get the other sister in trouble, we absolutely would. You know, we didn't braid each other's hair, we pulled it, you know, like this type of thing. And so I came into my adulthood very thinking, you know, very much that women would backstab. And a lot of times that happens, right? We see that a lot, even through misunderstandings. Sometimes we think that people have harmed us when they had no clue that that was even a thing, but not important. But I look at the women that really came for me hard, and all of them were really in that place of either just in that menopause place and came for me hard. But let me explain this. So both good and bad. For example, I had a women's study teacher that I just thought was amazing. She was fantastic. I loved everything about her. But Selena Fox just started following me. We were just talking about how amazing she was, and it just popped up right here. Oh, yes. Sorry. But this particular women's study teacher, she told me that I wanted a letter of recommendation for something, and she told me, I will write you a letter of recommendation for anything except writing. She said, she's like, you're great, but you can't write. Oh, and I was like, oh, okay. So she really didn't like my writing. But so this is the crone that we were talking about, right? Kind of that like grumpier thing. So she came for me hard in a very honest way. But what happened from that was I dropped out of her class, and I started writing. I started writing and writing more and writing more. And a year later, I sent one article to both Sage Woman and the Magical Times. And I got a message back from Sage Woman. It was like, hey, not ready for prime time. And I was like, okay, I did have some sentence structure things that weren't so great back in those days. And then I sent it to the Magical Times. And within 30 minutes, they responded. One was like, no. And I was like, my dreams are done. And then the other one was like, yeah, we're going to cut it down, but we're going to take your article. And so she's such an impactful person for me because she was... I'm really sorry for whatever this loud noise that might be happening. We've got some tree trimmers. Okay, there's some tree trimmers outside. But I lost my train of thought here. So, but because she kind of...
She got you to write.
Yeah, she was like this big boulder that got thrown in the river, and from it, two streams came. And I chose one instead of the other. And 5 years later, my first book was published, and I had to do, she wasn't wrong. I had to do a lot of work on the technical side of writing. And so she pushed me. But then I look at other women who were the open door, the big hug. And again, same age time different or time brackets is what we're talking about if we just kind of give it a handful of time here. But my dance teacher, one of the first dance teachers I that really encouraged me to become a professional dancer was like, yeah, it's gonna stink, it's your first performance, get out on stage and do it. And I did. And then I even look at people like Judica, who was the one that was like, oh, I would like to publish your book. And, you know, I had just had someone else tell me, like, this is no good. And then I had someone else tell me, how fast can you get me the manuscript? So I find that there's like a lot of, in my own life, a lot of validity to what you were just saying about there's the wise woman and the crone, but also kind of this there's wisdom there. So oftentimes I look back to the women's study teacher and I'm like, oh, she was so mean, I don't like her, I can't believe she said those things. And then I sit with that and I think, you didn't like her wisdom, but her wisdom was still so valuable to you. And it impacted you. And same thing with the dance teacher. Okay, you loved the wisdom that your dance teacher gave you, and it still really impacted you. So if I look at everywhere that I've been successful, there has been a wise woman of some sort that was a big catalyst that basically was like, oh, hey, it was either a, hey, sweetie, I'm just going to gently nudge you right here because better path for you, or, hey, sweetie, go that direction because you need to. And so I've experienced positive and negative, but the outcome being the same, that I received deep wisdom from someone who had a lot more experience than me. And it deeply impacted my life. I guess I hadn't really thought about some of those things and seeing this pattern as you bring it up. So I think that this is, I love this so much. I love this conversation. It's a lot of things I haven't thought about, but much needed. And I think that there's a huge gap with the magical priestess path, feminine path. And I kind of wonder if your book, The Female Magician, talks about the feminine power. And when you re-release it, will you have a new section? Are you going to re-release it with, you know, the wise woman power chapter added? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, wow, that's a really good idea, actually. The Woman Magician, I was trying to bring it back out. I started editing it and I realized that I could really spend it took me 10 years to write. Like, I would like to just put it back out, but I'm going to certainly issue it with the new introduction. I might, though, in the I'm throwing everything new I want to say in the new introduction, and I think in the introduction I will talk about the idea of being the wise woman, but that's something that I'll take off and do new material on too. And I want to come back to something to the idea of writing, because I'm an editor and a publisher. So as an editor, I've done developmental editing with people, and I edited a book called Women's Voices in Magic. So what I did was I went to every woman that has ever said something interesting to me that I didn't see in print and said, you must write this. And then I stayed on top of them and said, no, I really need you to write this. Give it to me in fragments. I can help you organize it. So there's I don't know what it was your teacher was thinking, like there's a great writer and you have to have talent, and there's this whole like mystique about being a writer. Anybody can write. It's a skill. And if you're an editor and if you're encouraging people to find their voice, that's a way to get people to their power. So I feel really strongly that anyone can write. Anyone can, and if you've got something to say, you should. And if you come my way, I will help that, because I think it's really, really important to get women's voices out there. So I think the the idea that women discourage each other, that's something that happens in our culture. And it's because we're competitive. We're supposed to compete with each other for men's attention. And so you get that sort of layer of, women don't support each other. And I think it's important for women to support each other. One thing I'm really proud of is that the women I published will say, I was published in Women's Voices in Magic. So for some of them, it's the only place they've been published. And I'm going to keep doing that stuff. I'm going to keep doing that work. And you had this great phrase. You said that you and your sisters didn't braid each other's hair. You pulled it. And I said, oh, now that's an idea for a series or an idea. Hang on to that. Braiding your sister's hair. We need to braid each other's hair, right? So
yeah.
support each other. Yeah.
Well,
The braiding your sister's hair series.
I just started watching Wheel of Time. Have you seen this new show? It's on Amazon. I think it's a novel series. I tend to, on Sundays, I meal prep, and so I put my laptop with a show or something in the kitchen, and then I cook for like 6 hours. So I started watching it, but it starts out with them like putting a braid in this girl's hair, and what's so interesting is it's post-apocalyptic, I guess, and there's magic, but there's women are supposed to have the magic, not the men. So there's some weird stuff that goes on there because of like what had happened in the past, right? I guess because of all these things that happened in the past, it sets the story up that it's a very matriarchal kind of society where they have priestess-like magical users, but then they have in different villages what they call the wisdom. And it is basically the wise woman. And it's supposed to be taken by someone that's, a little bit older, but in this one case, the wisdom's only 26. But it's interesting because they put the braid in the hair. They teach you how to listen to the wind, and they're the wisdom. And so wise woman and the wisdom. And I really like that versus like what we had talked about with the crone and it kind of having that negative connotation to it. But the wisdom or being your community's wisdom it sounds so wonderful. And people that might have a problem with the authority that a priestess might have, right? Because a lot of people have church trauma, and so they look at priestessing as an authority figure. But I don't take it as authority because I have those traumas as well. And one of the ways I learned how to heal that was to, be able to take on the word priestess without being an authority figure. Because I don't like that it's an authority figure, right? I like that it's the wisdom, a position of wisdom. And my priestess path in general really takes the path of service anyways. Service to the waters, service to the sacred feminine. And I have a big passion for also trying to get those feminine watery voices out into the world, which is why I have my Water Priestess series where people that specifically work with water in one way or another, whether it's massage, birthing, Reiki, ritual, protection, cleaning, like whatever it is, it's very much a path of service. It's not this path of authority over. And I feel like the I guess title wisdom really anchors that in as being a place or a path of service versus authority, because wisdom and authority don't often go together. Authority is very masculine. Like I am in charge of you. I have the right to say these things. And in some cases we absolutely do. Because I feel that there can be a lot of grace and graceful attitudes and behaviors around the priestess path as well. And so priestessing with grace is kind of what I'm trying to say, is like you can take on that authority figure, but instead of it being like this lording over, it's from this place of like, oh, someone has to be in charge. Okay, I'll take that on as service to this community. So anyway, I think I like sidetracked 6 times. So
No, I want to talk to that because I talked about that in The Woman Magician quite a bit, because our culture does gender, and we have two two kind of ways of looking at the world. So the male, and we have two cultures. We have a male culture and a female culture, woman's culture, man's culture and woman's culture, and two languages. There are different languages in the way we talk to each other. So with male culture, it's very hierarchical, and it's power over. I think about my manager in the corporate world who said all of his peers were also managers, and they wanted to know who was going to be director, and they were constantly fighting about who that was. Women's culture is a really different culture. We work in a circle, so we're all at the same level, and then one of us will step up and do something. And then the group can support them and then come back down and someone else steps up and do something. Now, where women's culture falls down is that sometimes when one of us steps up to do something, the rest of the group will try to bang them down. So that's the not supporting each other. What I really love, though, is this image that we all have power, and once in a while, one of us will step up and really take it. So I was president of Covenant of the Goddess for 2 years, and I took that position. And then I demand respect, right? You don't get to to beat me up because I have this position, because it's important that women are able to take power and hold power. But then you can also give it up. So I stopped being the president, and someone else got to step forward and be president. And I think that's the specific female-centered way of sharing power. I want to encourage everyone to have power, but also it's power with. It's power sharing, power supporting, not power over, like, I get to tell you what to do. Right. I hate that. I've had all those traumas, right? I've had the church trauma. I was raised Catholic, and and so I really relate to that. But it's also important to be able to step into the power, and that's what the wise woman does. The wise woman goes, wait, it's my turn. That's it exactly.
So what was it like being a priestess in the 70s and 80s versus 2010 versus now?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give us like what it felt like to be a priestess in your early days, and then that kind of as we began to kind of rise? Because I feel like 2010, it's probably more like 2015, honestly, that was like the big like push into like mainstream. So what was it like having to be a priestess hidden, and then okay, you can kind of be a priestess out, and to now where it's like, oh yeah, like you can literally put on, your tax form priestess, stuff like that. So I mean, it's a huge difference between the 70s and 80s and now, but I feel like there's probably even more with that middle period as well. So I don't know if you could just give us a little brief overview of what those transitions have been like for you.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started as a priestess, I would tell people what that meant, because they didn't have any idea. What does it mean to be pagan? I'd sit in a meadow and say, all right, being a pagan means that I'm recognizing that the sun is shining down on me and there's a power that I'm exchanging with. And have the whole conversation about what that meant. So there was a lot of explanation. Then there was this middle period in the late 80s and 90s where we all got out and met each other in person. So I did 15 festivals. It was what I did with my life. I organized stuff. And so we'd have we'd do rituals, we'd do workshops, and there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 days where we met with each other. And those things are still continuing. We can still meet with each other. But it built this infrastructure of knowing each other, of sharing information. And then the internet happened. And so some people have never gone out and gone to a festival and met people. And just connect through the internet, and it became so much easier. It's so much easier. When I was first starting out in witchcraft, there was no way we could meet each other. There was you would dress up at Halloween and wear your pentacle, and try to find somebody else who was wearing a pentacle and go, "Blessed be."
Right.
And now you can just like find the exact person you were looking for that you wanted to have a conversation with. So it's so
Blessed
amazing.
be was a code word. It was code word for a while of like. If they didn't know, they were like, thanks for blessing me. And then if they were like, blessed be, you were like,
yeah,
I know you.
No, I'll give you my story about how I found the coven that initiated me. I was hitchhiking because I was young and stupid. I was hitchhiking and I got stuck on a freeway with my boyfriend. And this car pulled up and said, "Hi, do you need a ride?" And he had a pentacle on his trunk. And I said, "Blessed be." He said, "Blessed be." And this turned out to be a Georgian man. He introduced me to Pat Patterson, and I took an initiation. But that's how I met. That's how random it was before the internet. I'm so grateful for all the changes that happened.
but what an amazing story, because nowadays you can't hitchhike like that because it's so dangerous. But
You just said
it wasn't at a crossroads, was it?
no. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of the crossroads.
I did a lot of things. I had a lot of experiences that people can't necessarily have now. I came of age sexually active after the pill and before AIDS. It was great. You could do anything.
You know, this is something, I'm glad that you brought it up, because one of the things that I really loved about paganism, and I still love about it today, is the emphasis on respectful and responsible, but being free sexually. This emphasis on like in our coven, it's like, why aren't you giving yourself an orgasm? Like,
Oh.
you know, like you feel like you're stressed. Have you had an orgasm lately? No. Why? These are vital things. And it's very much like it's important. It's an energy. And it's powerful, and something that has been sexual magic is being used, I mean, since the beginning of time, whether that's through with a partner or with the self. But it is a way to raise power. There's a reason that there's magic behind this. What is it like for you, like kind of nowadays with things not being so safe and consent culture? How things changed with maybe your sexuality or freedom expression of that around these topics as you progressed and now, actually? Because I don't know. I've never really talked to one of my wisdoms. I'm just going to start calling them wisdoms now, about those things. So, like, I don't know what, like, if you'd like to share, I would love to hear.
Yeah. When I was a young woman, before I was 20, I was in a consciousness raising group. So in the 70s. So consciousness raising is where women would sit and talk to each other about our experiences and then come to a conclusion. And we talked about the sexual revolution, and our teachers asked us, okay, what does the sexual revolution mean? And I said, it means you can't say no. And that's been there this whole time. So when I joined the Georgians had this festival they did called the Mountain Meat, and it was an orgy essentially. And as a young woman, I got really hit on by all the men in the group, so I left. I took my first degree initiation, and then I left. And I ever since then I met my husband, and he and I had a power in our sexuality that took us in the direction of learning sex magic and tantra. So I wrote a book. And I talk about that a lot. I joined the OTO because it has sex, it's got some sex magic in it. And then I started talking to people about consent culture. It became a very important part of the conversation. Because as a woman sex magician, first of all, there aren't many women still who write about sex magic and talk about sex magic. We get to have the power. And it's still a conversation that we have to have, right? And it's still books that I'm writing, books that are on my list of books to write about that. But it became very, very important. And it became a really big part of my career, certainly a big part of my career in the OTO, to really champion the idea of consent culture, to the extent that I became kind of a, yeah, people are like, we're really, really tired of hearing you say that. Okay, like, okay, yeah, I can talk about other things, you know. I want to say about the OTO that the OTO is serious about sexual consent, and there are mechanisms in place to talk about it. And also there are things that happen. There are things that happen in every magical community. And it's important for us to be able to address that, to talk about it, to make an atmosphere in which where it's easy for us to talk about it. Now, I wonder what the pandemic is going to do. I mean, a big part of consent culture was talking about touching and about hugging and consensual hugging. So Christine Hoff Kramer did a workshop at PantheaCon, which centered around touching, and then edited an anthology called Pagan Consent Culture that I contributed to, where she put that in the rituals or in the workshops, like how to do it. So we'd practice giving consensual touch and not, and then, you know, saying no and being touched anyway. So there were a lot of, you know, safeties around it. But that was a big part of teaching that. Now, you know, are we going, I don't know. I don't hug people I don't know, right? Because
I
pandemic
know.
it may make us a less touchy culture, and something that I really loved about pagan culture is that I could hug people. It was, you know, we could have touch, because I grew up in a family where we didn't have that, and it was lovely. It was a lovely thing to do. So I kind of wonder how that's going to change. But it's a very interesting conversation, and you know, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes. Those are the big messages.
Mm-hmm. So the 2 weeks ago, I had Dakota Chanel on, and she actually, I'm just going to give a little shout out real quick, because I think a lot of what we talked about is a big part of where her work is focused right now. So she identifies as a water priestess, and she came up in a different priestess pathway than we did, because for the longest time I only thought that it was us, but I don't know when it started. I want to say maybe 90s, early 2000s. I could be wrong. But there's another school, this very metaphysical priestess path. It takes a little bit more from New Age, the Christ light type of path working. So it's very different, but there's a lot of women now that follow this. I think that it might be connected to the rose priestessing and things like this. So I probably just said all of it wrong, but a lot of their mysteries come from Mary Magdalene and this vein. Okay, so that helps. It's something that parallels my path because of Avalon and Glastonbury, but it's separate, so I can't speak as an expert. But a lot of her work focuses on the sacred tending of the physical body. She was actually my inspiration for the 30-day nourishing that I'm doing, because I took her retreat where we, on a whim, in September, I had a really rough year, and on a whim, I bought a retreat package, and I went to a retreat with a bunch of women I had never met before, who weren't even from our, like, the pagan side of the priestess community. And I just dropped in, and I was like, I'm just going to partake because I need to be nourished right now. And it was so different than what I expected. I was expecting Pantheon. I was expecting to fill a notebook, you know, like this type of stuff. But rather, we would pair up and we would do like sensoriums where we would have, like, we'd have one woman laid out on a mat, and then we would like just rub her body in oils and scents and allow, like, we fed her, and these like very like sensual touchy things that me and you didn't grow up with, right? But this is part of like their everyday life. So long way to get to this point, but the point I wanted to make was one of the courses that she offers is what she calls the Amrita, which is female ejaculation. So and she teaches you how to do it in a course of sacred tending the body and how to do it yourself. So you learn actually the process of that sexual magic with yourself first before you move on with a partner. And I haven't taken her course, but I have asked her, and she does touch on trauma as well, because trauma can be a big block for some of these sexual magics. So I'm going to throw that out there for her, or just a little shout out, because I know that she's got a course that's starting like really soon if it hasn't already. But do you write about this in your books?
Well, I wrote Ecstatic Ritual Practical Sex Magic, and the reason I wrote it is because, I didn't see a woman writing about this, right? So I said, look, you can be a woman and be in charge of your sex magic. Western sex magic is very male-oriented, and it's still very male-oriented. It's like the male has the power, and the woman comes along, and I said, no! You know, so I exemplified a lot of ideas about, you know, you can say yes, and you need to know what's happening in the ritual, and everyone needs to benefit from the ritual. It's not just for one, so I had a whole lot of like ethics that I tried to promulgate, but then just teaching people about how to move the energy, what the energy body looks like, how sexuality changes that. And that's something that's just ongoing in my work. I mean to come back to it actually and talk about it, because now that I am a tantric practitioner, I have a deeper understanding of where the Eastern tradition intersects with what we do. Tantra is not sex magic. Tantra is a whole religious system. I work with the woman teacher. Yeah. I work with a woman teacher who in a kula of just women, and there's this whole really deep understanding of how women's power works in that tradition. So it's and in the West we go Tantra, and it means sex magic, and it means that you have orgasm. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not exactly what it is. But I do want to come back to it and write about it, because I can see where in the Western tradition we went a little off path, and I want to bring us back and bring the power back to women, and then bring the respect back to Tantra that it deserves. So that's on my list of books to write.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, that Tantra is not necessarily, I mean, it can be, but it's not necessarily. But I remember in the early, like when I would first hear about it, it would always be some guy who's like, I'm a tantric sex practitioner. And I would just be like, no thanks. So I'm really glad that you put that emphasis on there, because it's something that later on I found out, and because of those experiences I ended up having a little bit of like a ooh, like I don't know about that, but it's much deeper and much layered than just that kind of surface. Oh yes, it's just about the sexual side. There's layers, so many. But speaking of layers, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your latest book that's coming out, or came out, sorry, Cord Magic, right? This is the latest one that came out, right? Cord Magic, or did I just make that up?
No, Cord Magic.
Yeah, okay, it is Cord Magic. Okay.
Yeah, Cord Magic.
Okay. So
I'm so happy to have it.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, and I feel like this fits right in, Cord Magic, not magic, really brings to mind fiber and weaving. And again, Wheel of Time, this show that just started watching, the intro is like a crazy looking beautiful loom, and all of the threads of fate are being kind of woven. So do you talk in Cord Magic about some of these arts with fibers, such as, because I don't have a copy of it yet, I'm so sorry. But yeah, we should just exchange books. But looms and spinning wheels and drop spindles, these things fascinate me a lot. And one of the things that I've been doing is researching different plants to grow so that I can dye. My neighbor up here has alpacas, and I want, I have plants, right? But I feel like weaving and loom and cord magic are deeply woven with the feminine arts, because that's something that we as women have been doing for thousands of generations. It has been considered very much of a feminine craft. Though I know you're like me and you don't necessarily write specifically for one gender or another. Do you have weaving and feminine arts in Cord Magic? And if not, can you just tell us all about your new book?
So one thing I want to say is that it's true in a lot of places in the world it's a woman's art, but also in some places in the world it's a man's art. So you go to India. I traveled in India, and I found in Assam, in West Bengal, it was the women who were doing the weaving. And then I went to Varanasi, and I told the men there that women weave, and they go, no, women don't weave. So it's something that everyone can do. So what I did with Cord Magic, I wanted to make the art accessible to everyone. So I basically focused on how to do a simple twist, and then I talked a little bit about how you can take the ideas here and put them into knitting and weaving and whatever. Mostly it's basic magic, like what number, color, intention, and then ideas about where to do this. So you can make a chord in a minute, and then where do you do that? When do you do that? So timing and reasons to do it. So like I have a chord that is red and yellow. That's for my Isis knot. And I wear this when I'm doing Egyptian or Kemetic magic. So that kind of thing. And there's another book, Opal Luna has written a book called Fiber Magic, where she goes more into the crafts. And I'm going to be on Knit a Spell next week. And they tape and then they put it up. So she's going to talk to me for 2 hours. That's a long time about knitting, which is really fun because I stayed really general in cord magic. I didn't want to get so geeky, but I do knit, and I'm going to geek out with her. So we're going to have some fun. But when you make alpaca wool, I want some fiber. It sounds like it's going to be really fun. I referenced a couple of books in cord magic about what plants to grow. In particular, there's Dyer's Garden, so you can grow dye plants, and I've done a little bit of that. Mostly I dyed with vegetables when I did the book, but I did do some of my own dyeing, and I think it's really fun to do. And again, it's something that's really easy. Anyone can do it, and your kids can do it with you.
I have woad seeds that I'm going to try planting this year so that I can make some traditional woad, which I thought would be cool. And then one of my favorites is pokeberry, because of that hot pink natural. I mean, it's natural, but that color it looks synthetic. So, but it's like an interest of mine. I don't have a lot of time to put into it. So I've just been growing the plants because I also love gardening. So you said earlier that you're a master gardener. Yeah. And I've spent a lot of time around master gardeners because oftentimes I would take an ethnobotany class, and then we'd have a master gardener come in and talk about local plants. My anthropology degree, actually, I focused on ethnobotany. And I almost, way back in the day, went into forestry instead of art. But I went into art. Now I, paint things like plants. But I just haven't been painting a lot lately. But I love, love, love plants. And we actually moved to Oregon 5 years ago so that we could buy some property in a place that had a good growing season, because I was living in Arizona before that. And I have a chickens and a box gardens and a rose garden and berry gardens. We've got a lot here. But what is your favorite plant? What are you planning to grow this spring?
Oh, you can't have a favorite plant.
Okay, 5. Your favorite, all right. Top 5.
I take it back. When you said, what's your favorite plant? I said comfrey, because I grow comfrey. It's such a wonderful healing herb for so many things, but in particular for skin ailments. So yeah, but I love plants. So this year I'm doing less in the garden because I have a caregiving burden. So I'm doing more flowers. I'm really enjoying it. I've grown a lot of vegetables for the last decade and a half. And then when the pandemic hit, I happened to have I just had some pansies and I threw them in the garden. And then I didn't get to go anywhere, even to garden centers for a while. And the pansies really brought us through. I'm like, more flowers, someday more flowers, pansies, primroses, and that kind of thing. But I grow, we can do almost year-round gardening here. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so we don't get snow so much.
Where do you live?
I live in Bremerton, Washington.
Oh, is that North Washington?
Yeah. Well, east. You go to Seattle and take a ferry. That's
okay. All right. You are far away because I'm just south of Portland, and I was like, wait a second, I didn't realize we were that close. But you're way up and then over. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, close enough though. I mean, it's closer than California for sure. What part of Oregon, if you don't mind?
Between 45 minutes south of Portland and north of Salem. So right smack dab in the middle of the two, kind of out in the country.
It's not that I've done Portland for in 3 hours, so it's actually not as far as you might think. Yeah, it's
okay,
probably.
Sorry.
We'll have to get together personally.
Yeah. But I didn't realize you were in the Pacific Northwest, so you can grow all year round. Yes,
pretty much. What I do in September is I plant the March garden. So there's a kind of purple sprouting broccoli, planted in September. It grows to like this, and then it will sit there. And then in March it will go boom, and you have vegetables in March, which is really fun. One year I was putting I have a potager garden. I have 120 square feet in raised beds. And I took one of my beds and I just threw all my old lettuce seeds, and they went like this. And then it snowed, and I went, oh, there goes my lettuce. And then the snow melted, and the snow had kept the little seeds. And I had a bed full of lettuce in April. I had to call the gleaners and help me eat, because I can't eat like that much lettuce all at once, right? So yeah, you can grow, but there's a suspension in the growing period. But you can definitely you can eat if you plant it. You can eat out of the garden all year long.
Yeah,
so
I'm doing that. I'm still figuring out the winter side of the growing, but I did some Brussels sprouts a couple last year. Yeah. The year before, I had a really good crop, and like some beets and stuff like that too that usually do well. But it's time for me to clean out my boxes and redo my soil. I need to fluff everything up and add some compost and all that good stuff. But I wanted to let you know we've actually been talking for an hour and 5 minutes. No, so you're going to do great with the fiber episode because it goes by so quick. So, okay, I would like really quick to turn back over to a lot of what we kind of touched on already with the physical body and priestessing and being a magical feminine person in the physical priestess body, the chalice, the sacred chalice. So what kind of wisdom have you learned? And sorry to put you on the spot here with this one. The question's formulating as it comes out, but as a priestess of many, many, many years with a lot of experience and wisdom, what is some of the wisdom that your body has maybe told you, or that you've learned about your body and that physical vessel, that physical chalice that holds our spirit? Because this month I'm focusing very much on, like I said, getting back into the physical body so that it is a feeling good chalice to hold my spirit and soul. But I would love to hear some of your wisdom and whatever you'd like to share.
And I respond immediately as a theurgist, which theurgy it means God work, so it means working with deities, and it's a specific system. And theurgy is about connecting to the divine. And the important thing I think that I've learned about being embodied is that it's the body where all the magic happens. It's not out there. Your mind is not separate from the body. Our spirits are more than body, but they are embodied, and our wisdom is embodied. So the body is where I go again and again to complete the magic, to complete the circuit loop with the connection to the divine. The body can become a talisman for the divine presence. And there are, I think that's it.
The body
it's right at the cutting edge of my thoughts, but that's as far as I can articulate, right?
Yeah, I like what you just said. The body, I wish I had a rewind button. The body is oh God, I just had what you said, but like the body is the vessel.
Yeah, and the body is where, the body is a talisman. The theurgic magic works with talismans. So I've got my stones. I've got like a collection of stones that I work with. So there's physical things that you work with in order to connect with different deific forces, and symbols, right? So the body. So these are objects that carry the power of divinity, and the body itself, as you work with those objects, the body then takes on those virtues. So the body itself becomes a talisman. But it's your particular expression. It's a particular expression of the divinity in the world. Your body is that. But everything that happens grounds out in our experience here.
Yeah. Oh, you're blowing my mind with that. I want to actually write it down as a quote, but the body is a talisman. I mean, wow. There's so many layers to that. A physical connection with the divine. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. That's so perfect. It's so perfect because I gosh, of course, this makes so much sense. But again, this is the difference between the levels of wisdom that time and experience give us, because it had never crossed my mind. I thought about talismans, I thought about creating effigies, but I've never really thought to look at my body as a talisman. I've thought of, oh, I'm a chalice, but that physical object in which to connect with spirit or the deities, or um, in our water, right? Because that's my whole thing, is water. Our bodies are made up of 70 to 90%
Yeah.
of water. So it's more than just our bodies are a chalice, but that it takes that chalice even further into this sacred talisman, the physical vessel. That, wow. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm articulating full sentences right now. But there's so many layers right there for that circling back to what I had talked about earlier with, as I'm aging and becoming older, the things that I'm not liking about myself that aren't being fixed, I'm disassociating from. And that's not a great place to be. Rather, looking at an old talisman that I've had forever, or an old puppet, or even a doll, right? Just thinking of like your old stuffy or your baby doll that you've had. We highly value these things, right? Like, okay, I'm going to use my stuffy, my elephant stuffy, because I got it when I was real little. I had chicken pox. I still have it. I know, 30 years now, but every day I find more value in that stuffy. And it's so far from being brand new. It's got coffee stains from when I drink coffee in the morning as an adult in bed and accidentally spill it on my stuffy because my dog jumped on my lap. It's got wear and tear from when I was a child. It, was smushed from sitting in a box when I was in college. And it has all of these experiences, but yet the value of it, this is going back to what we had talked about, with how we devalue the aging woman and the aging priestess, is because if I were to put that on a shelf with the same price tag as a brand new toy, fresh off of the production line for the exact same price, 9 times out of 10, I bet you. Okay, hold again. I think I'm back. I disappeared for a minute. Okay, but 9 times out of 10, people will choose the brand new stuffy because they think that the newness has the value, when you cannot even compare that stuffy to the experience that my old Ellie stuffy has had. And I think that there's something like really powerful that I need to think about around this, is because I do have more value that I put on these older things. And so why is it then that as I become older, I see less value in myself, I see less value in others? I mean, and it's not necessarily like how I'm consciously being like, you're old, you don't have value. But it's a subconscious programming that you've really brought to light so many things for me. I feel like I have 6 months worth of work to do here to just deepen a lot of the things that we've talked about, because you really can't replace that old stuffed animal with anything brand new, because it comes with so much time and wisdom and experience. And if we could put a voice to it, what it could tell us that it's experienced, and the wisdom that we might learn from that. So circling back around again to something else we talked about, which was really giving other women a voice and having this platform for them. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you mentioned at one point that the TV show where the wisdom is 26, because wisdom, the body has a wisdom, and we have wisdom at every age. And I think it's important to recognize that, and also to recognize that the wisdom deepens as we age. Something like my tantric teacher says is that we are very lucky that we get to live as long as we do and have all of these experiences. It's a great privilege to get to have the whole story arc in our body. And I think we dissociate at almost every age from our body's experience. And so you're in a particular place where, oh, this is the why. There are lots of places where we do that as women. We get assaulted so much we disassociate from our bodies from those experiences, or from the pain. If you have just a specific pain, you can dissociate.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing challenge to recenter ourselves in the physical experience and to find the wisdom in that experience. You definitely are frozen now. There you go. You're back.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I checked my settings before. I live out in the country, so some days it's just hit or miss with the internet. It just depends on how it's flowing. So, oh my gosh. Okay, well, we've been talking we've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. I feel like we could go some more. We could keep talking. And I also feel like
Again.
when we get off of here, let's set up another chat for like the fall or something, and let's talk let's make it really specific, like the aging priestess, because I was sitting here thinking too that even if you're fresh out and yesterday you woke up and were like, oh my gosh, I'm on the priestess path, I think I'm a priestess, am I a priestess, am I one yet, I don't know, even if you're in that place, right, you're still aging. And there's still the day after, you'll have days of experience, and then a week, and then 10 weeks, and then 10 years, and really talking about those experiences. And maybe I don't know if we can do 3 people on here. I'll have to see if we can do 3 people, because it would be really cool to get someone that was in their 20s, like real early 20s, talking about like fresh on the priestess landscape. But I don't know if we can do 3 at once. So I will research it. If not, let's have another chat in the late summer, fall sometime, and really talk about more of this, because there's so many deep layers here, and I love what we're talking about. And I didn't expect it to go here today, but this is where it went, and this is great, because how many women out there are missing out on this type of conversation, and but we can save this, and now we can have this we can start putting it out there for other women, and maybe someone here today is going to go home and think about something and talk to someone else and start a ripple effect. It's the ripple effect is why I do my water priestess interviews, is to really be like, hey, I'm not the only person working magic around water, there's other people. But I like this concept for priestesses in general too, of hey, let's all come together and talk about our issues, because we actually have a worldwide community. It's not just a small pocket of Wiccan priestesses anymore. Like, we have priestesses from schools that I have never heard of before. And I'll go and I'll look at the priestess that's running it, and I'll go back and be like, oh, I know who your teacher's teacher is. Okay, cool. But there's so much of the development and layers and building, and I feel like we're just at the beginning. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 30 years.
Oh, thank you for doing this. It's so wonderful that you're doing this connection with other priestesses. It's why I love your work. Your Instagram game is on point. I really like your feed, and I love the work that you do. And you were a great writer, by the way. So I'm so glad that you're doing your work.
Thank you. Well, first off, the Instagram game, I tell you what, I had to hire a young, brilliant, tech-savvy witch who knows what she's doing, that is very skilled in the technology world. One of the benefits of the younger generations is they have got the internet game down. So I did get help. I did have to go and be like, please help me, because I work so hard, I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong, but let's reorder this formula. And she basically gave me a formula, and I listened to her, and it's worked. And I still come up with, still film real stuff, my own content. You know, my partner holds the phone and just films as I do things. It's, you know, it's not easy, but now that I understand how it works, because it's not necessarily about content. You can have the best content in the world, but it's about posting and algorithms, and all this kind of stuff. So, I will say that was not wisdom that I earned on my own. I definitely paid for someone else's wisdom on that one, but it does now give me the ability to be able to host other people and to showcase their work. And that's always been something that's been pretty important to me. And I really have been wanting to take a focus on the sacred feminine and what that means. Because we do get pushed to the side, and to really have a platform for women of all voices, and to speak. And I also wanted to, I meant to mention this earlier, but I wanted to thank you for defining how you believe what you know, female is or isn't, right? And just basically being like, yeah, if you present that way, that's I believe you. My take on it is, if you tell me that you're a woman, I believe you.
That's right.
Period.
Yeah,
that's it.
You're a woman.
I don't need anything else. I have too many trans sisters that have that women's space would feel like there was something missing if they weren't there to really entertain any other notion. So yeah, that's my stance, and I'm glad that we have the same thoughts on that, because I do think that it's really important that all feminine voices get heard. So thank you for that. All right, we are pushing an hour and 25 minutes. So let me wrap this up by saying I'm doing this 30-day Nourish Your Sacred Water Body Challenge, where every day I'm giving a little bit of a different challenge. Focus on your heart, focus on your, massage your feet, massage your hands, do a meditation, these types of things, where there's really a focus on the physical body, but also how the spirit and soul connect with that physical body. So would you like to give us a little challenge today? Maybe something that you do. It can be physical, it can be mental, it can be spiritual, but something that focuses on nourishing our sacred body, our sacred water body, that physical self, that you could maybe share with everybody so that they can perhaps give it a try.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I was like, I'm doing this. I do so much on my computer. I tend to, my hands hurt. So I just, when I tune in and I go, oh, my hand is hurting, I just do a little push down and give myself a little exercise. So I haven't even stood up, but I can help my body feel a little bit better.
I'm feeling it, just like right down here.
And Hygeia, I was going to talk about Hygeia. We'll have to come back and talk about her.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The Greek goddess of healing. You can also say Yia is how you say it in contemporary Greek. But she's the goddess of healing, and she works with snakes in particular. So there's a little bit of water connection here with her bowl. The snake is a sacred power that pulls poison and transmutes it. And that's a really important thing for us to have. So I've been working with her for 2 years pretty seriously. And so there's a meditation. I need to film this. There's a meditation where you take whatever you're feeling physically or emotionally and put it into the bowl. And then the snake drinks it and transmutes it and gives a remedy, which you then take into yourself. So there's a meditation for you. Hygeia, the goddess of healing, and the transmuting snake.
I like this a lot because serpents are often connected with wisdom, with energy powers rising, And the sacred feminine is often also associated with the serpent. They've shed their skin, and we have like these shape-shifting abilities, but the idea of putting stuff into the water and then allowing that the sacred serpent to transmute it, to change it. So when we talk about like things like charging a cup of water, right? This is almost a very, very simplistic version of this, where we are putting our intent into it, where with this meditation, you're putting the thing, the poison, in, and the intent is then to change it and ingest the antidote. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. The opposite of it. So I can see so much of that being done. You could even do a cup of tea. You could drink a cup of tea during that meditation and really like focus on charging that cup of water, cup of tea into the transmuted, and actually ingest that. So challenge. All right. So we have a physical tending of the hands, which feels so good. And I'm really glad you brought this up, because I did do a hand massage last week. But we didn't do anything to stretch like this. And any of us that spend time on a computer or using our hands really need to. So physical side of that is tend your wrists, your hands, give some good stretches. And then the other side of the challenge is find a cup, a beverage, a natural beverage, and work with it to kind of charge it with the opposite of whatever you're feeling at the moment or today. Whatever poison is kind of poison, that can be negative thoughts, that can be actual putting bad food in your body. It can be so many, it can be going back to your ex. It can, anything that's these poisons, right? And really like being like, okay, hey, we're going to focus on this. And like, this is not what we want. Let's charge the water in our physical bodies, in the vessel, into the antidote, into the thing that will heal instead of poison. And then actually then ingesting the water. I love this. And I love that you brought her up too, because I end up using statues of the Greek goddesses. So I have Hebe right here. Who's so, yes. And so Sulis doesn't have a statue. And so she's the closest. So I love the statue that you showed with the serpent energy. I might go grab one now, because I'm like, dang it, that looks great. I love the serpent on there. And it's interesting because the serpent is also associated with healing when you look at the caduceus, right? So you have that, the caduceus, the healing symbol. So you've got the straight axis pole, and then you have the two serpents going back and forth and then little wings, which can be energy awakening, or kundalini awakening is what some people will call this. But it's the idea that these energy centers spiral up the spine, and that in itself can be an alignment or healing act. And so, this, I would have, we could have talked about that more, but I also don't want to keep you on for, too long. I know you've probably got some stuff to do today, but we'll get a date on the calendar. We'll send some emails later today, and we'll go back and forth. We'll figure it out. We'll get you on the calendar, and then we're gonna talk some more, because this was so great. Like, me personally, I get a lot out of all of the live streams I do, but this one, I feel like you priestess me in this.
Oh, thank you. Truly.
Because you've given me so many things to think about, and you didn't even know that I was struggling with them. And you also give me this hope of like moving forward and aging into graceful power instead of the lack of power. And I just want to thank you for that, because I've gotten so many little nuggets and takeaways and things to explore and learn. So thank you so much. One more time before we go, tell us the books that we can get on your website and Amazon, and then your forthcoming reprints one more time, and then of course where we can find you online.
Okay, so brandywilliamsauthor.com, or Brandy Williams Author on Instagram, Brandy Williams Author on Facebook. My books with Llewellyn are Practical Magic for Beginners, and my new book, Cord Magic, which I'm having so much fun with. And then the books that I'm reprinting are For the Love of the Gods and The Woman Magician, and I'm doing that through Mnemosyne Press. So I'll have that on my Instagram, or I'll have that on my webpage. And For the Love of the Gods will be February 1st. So I think that's all the contact information. Yeah.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And do you have a newsletter? Can people go to your website and sign up for a newsletter?
I should.
Oh, you don't. Okay, so if you want to know about when the new books are coming out and you want to be informed, follow on Instagram and follow on Facebook. And you don't post a lot, so it's safe to put notifications on, so you won't get 17 million notifications a day.
I don't post a lot. I post Instagram. I try to. I have periods where I post more. I don't post a lot on Facebook, but I do put announcements there.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I go through waves. I'm in a wave of like, I don't want to post very much. I just want to talk to people on Livestream. But next month I'm beefing back up. So, okay, so you guys make sure that you follow her here, Brandy Williams Author, Instagram, Facebook. You can find her online. You can find her books everywhere books are sold, and keep an eye out for those forthcoming books. I'm really looking forward, I'll be honest, to the re-release of The Woman Magician with the new, with your new thoughts and experiences wrapped into it. So I'll be looking for that one. Anybody that's new to magic, check out the beginner book. You know, we have a lot of beginner books on the internet to buy, but it's always nice to have someone that has so many years experience and wisdom to back them up. So, you know, if you're looking for a solid beginner book, check out her work. Are you teaching at any pagan events this year?
Well, I'm scheduled to go to Babylon Rising if it happens. You know, these things are all in the air, but I'm scheduled to go to Babylon Rising this year, which is in June.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm up in the air with mine too. I keep getting emails that are like, register to you know, teach via Zoom, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel yet. Well, we'll keep an eye out on your social sites, and we'll look for you, and we'll have you back in a couple of months. So, all right. Thank you guys all for being here and for watching us chat and ramble. Thank you, Brandy, for being here. And yeah, for everybody else that joined. So I will see you guys next Monday. It'll be just me, and we'll have some more guests coming up. And so with that, I'm going to say goodbye. And thank you so much, Brandy, for being here today, and being my guest. It's been wonderful. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.